So hi everyone, I'm here today in Brazil, so if you hear any exotic birds in the background, that's why. In today's video I want to talk about this book, Poor Charlie's Almanac, which I'm currently studying, and I want to go through. He has one talk in the book called the Psychology of Human Misjudgement, and it basically goes through all the mistakes that we make in our thinking. And I want to go through them one by one, so I will start with the first one today. Charlie Munger, he points out that we sometimes make pretty big mistakes in our thinking. And a way to describe this is if you look at a hive of ants, if you look at a group of ants, they sometimes can be found walking around in circles until they die. Simply because they're programmed to follow another ant. So if everyone is doing this in a big circle, sometimes they do this and they die. And just because of this pre-programmed way of thinking in their mind. Also, he makes one example. If the ants in a hive smell the scent of a dead ant, they will a few of them will pick up the dead ant and throw it out of the hive. But then a scientist, he took the smell of a dead ant and painted it in the forehead of a live ant, of a living ant, and then the other group would still throw it out even though it was alive and trying to resist. So just because evolution had made these ways of thinking that most of the times they worked, some of the times they actually didn't. But Charlie, he points out that we humans, we have similar ways that we might think in wrong ways that evolutionary has worked most of the times, but that in some situations make us take very stupid decisions. So he makes an example of how Hitler was elected, for example, in Germany, where most of the people were Catholics, which doesn't really make sense, but Hitler used these ways of manipulating people and use them to his advantage to claim the power. So in another example, there was a study, and where normal everyday people, they would participate in this study in a group, and they would let another human being partake in torture, in electric shocks, simply because the group around them did not react like that it was a bad behavior. So in this setting, they also proved that by the group not acting like it was a bad behavior, they actually thought it was okay. And then we can ask why. Why do we think so wrong in certain situations? Maybe you found yourself thinking, why did I make that stupid decision? Maybe I'm a stupid person, or why did I take those decisions in the past? Why did I let that salesperson convey me to do this thing, for example, or why did I do this stupid thing at my job? But Charlie Munger, he says that our brain does not have unlimited power to work. So evolution has programmed many of these ways of thinking that should work in our advantage, that should be automatic for us. But in some ways, sometimes they make us make the wrong decision, and it's not actually our fault. And if we can learn to see those mistakes beforehand, if we can learn to figure out more all these ways of how our brain thinks wrong, then we can actually make smarter decisions and make fewer of the wrong decisions. Because Charlie, he's known for the line, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I never go there. And what he means by that is he wants to know all the mistakes he can make in investing or in life, for example, so that he will make fewer of them. And that will give him an edge in investing and give him a better quality of life. Simply because if we have, let's say we have these decisions we take every day, 100 decisions every day. If 20 of them are bad, and we can erase 10 of those, so we only have 10 bad decisions and the other ones best. Slowly we will see a curve that goes slightly up instead of more going straight or going downwards. So that is his way of thinking. Charlie is also thinking about how you can invert. He says, invert, always invert. And it's a method of thinking that is commonly used in algebra, in mathematics. if you want to know what X is, you should think in the opposite of X. So, and this can really help us in everyday life. I've tried this many times myself, and by searching for the opposite of what you're searching for in the answer, it can actually be easier to find it. So, for example, if Charlie wanted to invest in one company, he would then first specify all the qualities of companies that he did not want to invest in. What are some of the qualities in a horrible company, for example? So then he would make sure to, if any company he was looking at had any of these qualities, he would just rule it out. He would just not look at it any longer. And another example was when he was in the military, he was a weather forecaster, so he would help the pilots to see what weathers was going on and how to avoid disasters with icing on the planes or that it was super bad weather. So what he would ask himself is, what are the things I can do to really mess up? How could I kill those pilots? And okay, so he found out, okay, if it is icing on the planes, for example, or if I put a pilot in really bad weather. So then he would just make sure to always avoid those situations. So, and that might seem maybe super simple, or you might ask, why would that type of thinking work? Well, try that for yourself in a problem you're trying to solve in your life. And you might find that maybe you're actually doing one of these characteristics of the thing you want to avoid, and that is what's causing the problem. So if you can really specify those for yourself and make it more clear how you can avoid those, then it's much easier and you would automatically see a better result. So the first one is the power of incentives, and Charlie describes this as reward and punishment super response tendency. It's a little bit more complicated, but we can simplify and think of it as the power of incentives. And I think it's one of the most powerful ones, and Charlie lists it as number one. So here Charlie makes the example of FedEx, Federal Express, the shipping company, and in the beginning they had really problems getting shifts done on time, because all the planes would gather in one airport, sort up the packages that should be sorted into the right planes so that they could take off and deliver those planes in a very short period of time. But they had a very difficult time getting those shifts done, and it took too long time to get the packages sorted. And then one executive, he figured out that they actually paid the employees per hour, not per shift. So they were actually rewarding that the employees took a longer time. So what they simply did is, instead of paying them per hour, they pay them per shift. So they said, okay, when this job is done, then your shift of the day will be done. Then you will get your reward, your salary. In the blink of an eye, they just solved the problem, because now the employees were actually rewarded to work efficiently rather than just taking a long time. And I've actually experienced this myself. Once I had one accountant and he was paid per hour, and when I had meetings with him, I could see that he was actually talking more slowly, or he was involving more stories in his way of speaking, and just he had kind of automatically programmed into himself to take a longer time to make his point come through. And to me, in the beginning, it was like, oh, why is he doing that? Is he really knowing that he's doing that? But I think just because he was an accountant, he was so used to be paid per hour, so then he started talking in this way and wasting his client's time, basically. So these two examples might be some of the more simple ways of looking at this principle, but let's now dig down deeper in how we can apply this principle. So Charlie, he puts an emphasis on the person's creating these systems have a much more responsibility that they think. Because you might think that, let's say in a company, if it's really easy for employees to steal, for example, they made some research that then if it was easy to steal from the company and they would easily get away from it, most of the employees would actually do it. But Charlie, he puts the emphasis then on it's actually the responsibility of the employer, of the company, to fix that. If they know how to fix it, they should fix it. Otherwise, it's their responsibility, and they're actually making incentives for unethical behavior in their employees. So it's not the employees that are unethical, it's actually the people who create these systems that are unethical. And that totally switched my way of thinking about this. A pretty cruel example of this is in Sweden right now, where legislators have thought that, okay, we should protect children, for example. So children should not be able to go to prison, and children should have much lighter, they should not be punished so hard if they commit crimes. And that's a way of how they thought, okay, this is how we can protect children. But what happened then is that gangs actually have started to recruit children to perform the worst types of crimes, like murders and really bad things. So and you might think, oh, it's so bad of the gangs, it's so bad of them to do this. But it's the system that has created this problem. The system has rewarded these people to do that. So it actually switches the whole way of thinking and to put much more responsibility on the legislators. So another example we might see is, let's say there's 2 or more siblings in a family, and one is a very strong, independent one, and one is a weaker one, or who needs more support. So the parents will then naturally turn towards maybe the weaker one to give them money, to pay for their housing, or support them very much emotionally, and these types of things to help them, to help that person function in society. And they don't pay so much attention to the strong one, because they are naturally already independent and do things on their own. So what's happening then is they are actually strengthening the already strong child, and they're weakening the weak child, because they're actually rewarding the person to be weak. They give rewards when they're not able to function on their own. So that the incentives are there for that person to stay in that position. Or the same in society, if a person is unemployed and society gives them an unemployment payment, for example, that rewards them to stay in a position of dependency, financial dependency, and hinder them to go out and to develop in life. So if we continue on that train of thought of raising children, then it could be better, instead of just giving them a weekly allowance, could maybe be smarter to say, okay, if you go out to make a deal with a neighbor to cut their lawn to make $10 a week, then I double that. Then you get $10 more from me, for example. So this would much more encourage them to be entrepreneurial and go out and create opportunities, rather than thinking that money comes naturally. Or if one thinks of giving the child who has become a young adult a car, for example, one could say that, okay, if you pass all exams, you will get a car, instead of just giving them a car, because that would reward good behavior, and you won't have to continually remind them to make their homework. They would naturally think about that car that they want, and then that would inspire them to study. So then we can see, if we're looking at, for example, companies, or a company we were thinking of investing in or looking into or studying, we can then see how incentives are used as a reward in this company. We can see, for example, if sales employees, they made some research that Charlie makes the example of, if a sales force is rewarded on a 100% commission base, then they would be more likely to have unethical behavior than if a part of their salary was fixed and a part of their salary was flexible, depending on their how much they sold. So that's one way we can look at it. But they also saw that a person who is rewarded 100% on compensation maybe will perform more than the person with the other system. So, but we can look at these systems and say, okay, how are people rewarded in this company? How are CEOs? How is the CEO rewarded, for example? Do they need to perform to get their yearly bonus, for example? We can also see in society how incentives are placed to actually create, to reward or punish people's behaviors. For example, in Sweden we have a system where the higher salary a person has, the bigger percentage they need to pay in taxes, which is kind of weird, because that would actually, if we look at it from this perspective, it would actually say that disencourage people to go to higher education and to study and to have a higher paying jobs, because they would simply, a bigger cut of that would be paid directly to the government in taxes. But for example, if one invests in an investment account, an ESK account, part of that, when someone starts doing that, the first 150,000 now, or the next year 300,000 SEK, $15,000 or $30,000 would be tax free. So then people will be encouraged to start investing on their own. And for example, if a company invests in other non-publicly traded companies, then profits on these dividends from that company or profits from a sale of that company will actually be tax-free within the company. So, but also losses cannot be tax deductible. So that's a trade that the government has made. So there's actually a huge premium to learning business, learning how to help businesses grow, and because the government see that if we have more businesses that grow, we will have a flourishing society and more people will have jobs. Charlie also makes the example that we can use this incentive-based rewards with things that we already own. So we can do, let's say we have things that we need to do, but we don't enjoy so much. Then we can make sure to make them the first thing that we do, and then make some reward after. Some things that we enjoy. Maybe we make we have some chores that we need to do in our or some activity in our business that we don't enjoy so much. Then we can make sure to do that first after we have our cup of coffee, for example, to make that reward. So because our mind is so programmed to think in this way, so then we can actually use it with things we already own. So, and you can experiment with this for yourself and see, are you in a work position where incentives are rewarding ethical behavior or rewarding growth, for example, that you grow, or are you paid to actually perform tasks very slowly instead of efficiently? We can use it practically when looking at other companies, as I described earlier. How are reward systems put in place in this company? Is the company rewarding ethical, good behavior, and are they rewarding performance from the employees? But see how you can use this first one, and highly recommending getting this book, Poor Charlie's Almanac, and studying it deeply, because he was a fantastic wise person that can really help us have a better quality of life, make smarter financial decisions, and so on. So yeah, enjoy your day, and if you have any questions about this or how you apply it, please write a comment below. It would be amazing to see what insights you have taken from this book and from this first way of human misjudgment. Cheers.